Welcome to Bible Over Beer. I am Randy.
And I am Steve.
You're joining us for the discussion on Nehemiah, the book of Nehemiah. Last time we did Ezra. Hopefully you've caught up with us in your reading. Clank.
For the record, it's discussing the Bible over beer for those who are concerned that we're reading the Bible while drinking our beer.
It's allowed. Pretty sure.
Yeah, it's only a beer, and some of them aren't even real alcohol. So, just saying.
Last discussion we discussed Ezra, and Ezra was about the rebuilding, basically, of the temple. So now we move on to Nehemiah, which happens approximately 12, 13 years after Ezra. Does that sound familiar to you? 12, 13 years, somewhere in that area?
After they finished,
the temple. And this is going to be basically restoring the wall around Jerusalem.
Yep.
Their protective structure. I don't think it mentioned how tall that wall was when it was finished. I'd like to know, though. If anybody knows, please comment.
So I'm almost thinking, isn't part of the wall still there today? We'll have to figure that one out.
I know that. I want to say I know that Jerusalem is walled off completely. I'm pretty sure it is.
Yeah, I don't know.
I think Jerusalem. I think that Jerusalem's all walled off.
Could be,
but maybe not. I might be thinking of World War Z with Brad Pitt.
Yeah, exactly.
It was walled off for World War Z, so
exactly,
maybe that's why I'm thinking that.
But I mean, but it could be because that's the reason why they all went there is because it was already prepared. And it's
for
by
the
that
zombie
case,
apocalypse.
The wall was tall too; it was like 100 feet tall. So.
And what was cool about this too is that Ezra's still around.
Oh yeah,
Ezra's still part of this. So Nehemiah was located in Susa at the time, a city east of Babylon. Nehemiah felt a deep connection with his people in Judah. And when he hears that they're being attacked, and he hears that they're being attacked and Jerusalem itself is being breached. First of all, who was Nehemiah? What was he?
He was the cupbearer for King Artaxeres, or it's like Artaxerxes. I can't remember.
Artaxerxes,
yes,
the cupbearer, right? And God spoke to him. Nehemiah offers a prayer to the Lord, humbling himself and asking for mercy for his people and for their sins. Nehemiah knows that the people are growing weak because of their sins, and they were scattered into exile. But he prayed to the Lord, and that they would rather be back if they followed his laws and commandments. He would take them back. The Lord answers Nehemiah's prayers, but in a way that he does not expect. The Lord uses Nehemiah's humility and sadness to reach into King Artaxerxes to have compassion for his servant. I actually listened today of the recorded pronunciation of Artaxerxes.
Artaxerxes. So here's Randy saying one. So I've heard a few of them too, say Artaxerxes in all the videos I watch. So
the king allows Nehemiah to go to Jerusalem to help rebuild it. I'm ignoring you.
Well, I'm like, we both got it right from our videos. So,
but he has to promise to return. He doesn't really give him a time frame, but he does have to promise the king that when it's accomplished, when his mission's accomplished, he has to return. The journey is dangerous, so the king gives Nehemiah a letter and armed escorts to help him get to Jerusalem. Some enemies like Sanballat the Hornite, governor of Samaria, and Tobiah, an Ammonite official, were not pleased that someone would help the Israelis. When Nehemiah had returned to Jerusalem, he had been there for 3 days. He inspected the wall and came up with pretty much a game plan to rebuild it. The leaders of the neighboring lands, Sanballat, Tobiah, and the Arabs to the south, mocked their efforts. But Nehemiah rebuked them by saying the Lord would make it happen without any of their help.
They were so angry, and their big punishment was, our big joke was, if a fox was to crawl up in it, it would crumble down.
Meaning what? This is going to be a weak wall.
That's what it implies.
Because they talked about the rubble. The rubble of the wall was still there, and they're going to keep using that rubble. Or use that rubble to rebuild, right? But hey, rock is rock, right?
It is.
The work was divided up among the Jews, each taking a different portion of the city walls and gates. Seeing the work started, Sanballat and Tobiah once again ridiculed the Jews, mocking their efforts trying to demoralize them. These were verbal attacks only. The tone changed once the enemy started to see gaps in the wall getting closed. Instead of words, they decided to threaten with attacks. They didn't attack, but they threatened attack before the wall could get stronger. The Jews that were building the wall lived in fear for their lives. It's at this time that Nehemiah came up with some intelligent plans to defend the city. And let's give a couple examples because you're reading along with us. He assigned guards at strategic positions. He reminded the people that the Lord was with them. They worked with swords at their hips, understanding that as they're working, they could be attacked at any time. They worked from daybreak until night, not even have time to change their clothes. They must have got stinky. Woo!
Yeah, well, kind of reminds you of their Exodus travels, how they...
And then, we'll get to this in just a little bit, how long it took to build the wall, but they were working pretty much night and day to get this up. I mean, they really did it in like record time.
Oh, yeah.
In addition to their fears of enemy attacks, the nobles and magistrates of the area were taking advantage of the people. So think of, here's these people that come back to Jerusalem, right? That was dangerous enough. And now they're risking their lives to build this wall. And their own people, the richer folk, are taking advantage of them.
Yep.
It's like being put back into slavery by their own people.
Well, they're already enslaved, but they're enslaved in slaves kind of thing.
Yeah, they lived in fear of losing everything that they owned. They couldn't afford, basically, to survive. Nehemiah rebuked the nobles and magistrates for their severe treatment and that they should fear God. He convinced the nobles to give the people back their land, their houses, and any interest in anything that was lent. Nehemiah added a note of punishment for God to anyone who did not. And guess what? They did.
They did follow.
During the 12 years there, while Nehemiah was appointed the governor of Judah by King Artaxeres, he used the governor's allowance to feed 150 Jews and magistrates each day from his own savings, and he also worked the wall. So he walked the talk. He
didn't use what was set aside for their men.
Exactly.
Nor did his people. So that was a big,
Great example to set.
Correct.
There were also enemies that were attempting to kill Nehemiah at this time, and we talked about them, Sanballat and Tobiah.
That's a new one.
They tried to invite him to a council meeting, but he declined because he had the foresight to say, no, I think you'll probably try to do something to me there. They changed their tactic and started to spread a rumor that he wanted to be the new king of the Jews.
Yep.
Nehemiah denied their claims, and he didn't go for that one either. And then they sent Shemaiah, the false prophet, tried to convince Nehemiah of impending danger and take refuge in the temple. Nehemiah rebuked him and suspected he was being bribed, and he refused that request too.
So we know why that's important? Just a side trivia.
Can't live in the temple.
Well, he's also not a priest.
He said he would die.
He's not a priest. So.
Yeah. He said, if I go in there, I'll die.
Yeah.
Nehemiah turns to God and asks him to remember their false deeds. The wall was completed in 52 days, and their enemies became discouraged. Nehemiah set up trustworthy men to watch over the main gates and for the gates to be closed at restricted times of the day. He also was wise to recognize infiltrators could come in secretly, so he reviewed all the family records of those who had returned from exile, the people, the priests, the singers, the gatekeepers, the temple servants. In Nehemiah, verse 63 through 65.
Which
Sorry,
chapter?
I'm stumbling here. Chapter 7.
Okay.
Anyone who could not prove the ancestry was disqualified from the priesthood. This was to prevent spies, enemies, and false teachers from infiltrating the priesthood. So again, they're just trying to get right back to the Levites being the priests. And they had to prove it. At the water gate. So all the gates around Jerusalem, they had names. One was called the Dung Gate.
Which we assume is for...
I would think so. I don't know what else, unless dung is a different meaning. I don't know. At the water gate, a name that we recognize, the people gathered to hear Ezra. He taught them God's law, and he gave great blessings, reminding the people to return to God and to the law. The next day, as they were rediscovering the law from the book of Moses, they discovered it was time to celebrate the Feast of Booths. Do you know what that is?
The camping, yes. We talked about that.
Yep. That takes place for 7 days. It was like a little hut you had to build and live and eat in it and everything else. And that, which was not done since the time of Joshua. So they're reinstating that. The Israelites separated themselves from other people, confessed all their sins, and read from the book of law, and gave blessings and praise to the Lord. And then they also go on the list, this is chapter 9, of examples of the praise. Many examples. To confirm their seriousness, the people take an oath and put it in writing, signed by Nehemiah himself first, and then the other leaders.
Yep, all the leaders.
Steve's on it. Along with the benefits of the oath, they are required to follow. And there is a whole list of the rules, regulations, everything else.
Well, we've heard it before.
We've heard it all before, many times.
They're
up and down
reaffirming
relationship
back,
with
yeah.
God,
Yes.
right? Yes.
Yeah, they're going back to what they were told originally and find out
All
if
the
it
way
matters.
back. Along with the leaders taking up residence in Jerusalem, lots were cast to choose 1 in 10 Jews to live in Jerusalem, while the rest would live in other cities of Judah and Benjamin. You know, and we've read about lots before, and so I looked it up. What the heck is a lot? And
It's like picking drawing straws, right?
it really, the definition of it, like the biblical definition of it that I found, was a portion of inheritance and a destiny assigned by God.
Yeah, could be.
I don't know.
I mean, I know. So I think it's basically. I mean, I think in the context of this is they were basically drawing straws. So somehow,
Yeah, like a lottery system or something.
Yeah, it was a lottery. Yeah.
A scribe gives careful account of where the people were settled. So again, huge list
Yep.
of all the people and where they settled.
And was that chapter 12?
11.
Oh, 11 still? Okay. Oh, yeah.
As in chapter 7, it was critical to record all the priests and Levites and to prove their ancestry and for future posterity. First, the wave that returned with Zerubbabel, Jeremiah, and Ezra. The high priest succession was identified and written down. The completion of the wall was celebrated. Finally, coming to the end here, the Moabite and Ammonites were separated out from the Jews because of their grievous sins of the past. By worshiping false gods and Baal and cursing the Israelites, they were threats to Jewish beliefs. The current threat of Tobiah and the Ammonite and the opposing Arabs and Moab did not help the situation. Nehemiah, fulfilling his agreement after 12 years, returns to King Artaxeres. However, after a suitable amount of time, he asked to leave the king and to return to Jerusalem. Upon his return, he learned of the evil acts, problems, and stuff that were starting to flare back up, and he quickly stepped in and nipped it in the bud.
Yeah, that's going to put it mildly.
You know,
mildly.
he leaves for a while. Things are falling apart, like, almost immediately.
Well, awesome. Number one, awesome summary. I mean, you nailed it, so that's
Well,
awesome.
I was thinking about this when I was putting it together. What you did last time, I really liked. You had things written down, but you were pretty much be able to look at the camera and like go, where I'm like, I can't do that. I still got to go chapter by chapter and kind of like put a little story together, you know?
I didn't notice.
There we go.
I think you didn't read it for word for word, so that's good.
It's a summary.
Yeah. So a couple things.
And I enjoyed this book.
Yeah.
I did. Yeah, and Ezra. I thought they were great. And I thought the length of them was nice too. 13 chapters.
Well, because I think in our defense, which again, we're hearing the same thing over and over again. It gets frustrating when you hear that, you know, they walk and they talk with God, and then maybe they don't, but then they wander and do bad things, and then forgive, and God takes them back, which is awesome. But then they just keep repeating that, and it's, you know, it's
They
for
do.
us.
And then
to
he
know.
comes up with people, with like a person or a couple people like Ezra and Nehemiah. They're almost like the glue that pulls everybody back together. And they leave for a little while, like Nehemiah, that glue, and they start to separate. And it's like, come on, you know?
Well, one of the things I noticed, and you use the term Jew a lot, in all of our readings, this is the first time I saw the word. We all know that the Jewish people, but this is the first time we, you know, in
Is that right?
13, chapter 23.
I never
it was
thought
the first,
of that.
Yeah, they call them. It says, "In the days also I saw the Jews who had married women of Ashdod, Ammon, and Moab." Until then, it was always the Israelis or Judah. You know,
That's
it was
awesome. I never thought of that.
Yeah, that struck me because I'm like, wait, we know, well, we assume. That's what I'm going to say. I always assumed that these were the Jewish folks. I mean, well, I guess we knew, but
And I never said it out loud because I wasn't saying it in what we were reading. So, but that's incredible. I never made that connection. That is peachy keen, man.
how about it?
Peachy keen
It was
Jews.
it was an observation because I'm like, I kept going back through. I said, I know I saw that.
Right.
And I did find it. And another thing, we left off in chapter 13, and he returns and things are going bad. Well, and you said he rectifies it. Well, he does it in a pretty good. I mean, he just beats people up. He tears stuff apart. As a matter of fact, what was it? We heard about Tobiah again, and not our buddy Toby, who just had a birthday. But Tobiah, one of the bad people, he was friends with one of the priests, and one of the priests actually set aside a room, cleared out a room in the temple for him to use. I'm like, goodness gracious.
Yeah.
And, so he flipped out and tossed his crap out, and then and then he threw, kind of like Jesus. We'll find later on. I remember Jesus when they were doing stuff inside the temple walls. He turned the tables all over and was mad, which rightfully so. He did the same. Nehemiah did the same thing. And then the part I got a kick out of, he found that some were still intermarrying and their kids couldn't speak English. And he started ripping beards off and paddling kids. And I'm like, this guy's a menace. I mean, but he gets them in line.
It takes a strong leader, right?
Oh, yeah.
Rule with fear. And that's why they always say, have a healthy fear of God.
Oh, definitely. But yeah, he definitely had God inside because he's one guy, but they listened to him. I mean, just imagine he's a cupbearer. And that's a very prestigious, from what I understand,
right,
position. He's the person that says, let me, I taste everything. And then he has lots of important duties, but tasting the food is very important,
keeping that wine glass filled.
But and I thought an interesting point, and I'm sorry for using the word interesting, because I noticed watching my videos, I use that word a lot. So somebody put in a comment, give me another adjective to use. So something I found intriguing.
There you go.
Was when he was the king, so he's cupbearer. You're on the king. You're supposed to be joyful and happy all the time. Just you can imagine that, right?
Okay.
And he's forlorn,
Sad.
melancholy. Yeah, because of reading about the wall in shambles,
Right.
And the king noticed it and asked him what his trouble is, and he basically praises the king first before he answers, and then he prays to God.
Yeah.
That was pretty intriguing because, probably saved his butt.
Absolutely.
Because it was God's plan. I mean, obviously it was.
Yeah, God had put it in his heart, and then also, he ended up putting it in King Artaxeres' heart, right? So, I think,
Randy saying the name Artaxeres.
Nehemiah, he had faith.
He
had strong faith.
Well, I mean, there was a lot of evidence, I think, of it. I mean, he points out a lot of stuff too. That whole they rehashed what Ezra was preaching to the people, and then the Levites were helping in chapter whatever, as after the wall was built, and they were at the Watergate. They recounted the whole Exodus all the way up through. I'm not sure if it went through Leviticus, but it went all the way through everything.
Yeah.
So, and it reminded the people, like, you led us out of this. You crossed part of the Red Seas. You fed us in the desert. We walked with, our clothes weren't torn, our feet weren't blistered, and we still turned our back. So it was pretty humbling to how they reminded it, And
this is, the reoccurring theme that I say all the time. These people need to be reminded over and over and over again.
And I think
I
think it's a modern lesson. We constantly all do. I mean, in my opinion.
Absolutely. 100%.
So I've made a few things. Did you have a few? Well, another thing I had. Man. Well, I mean, I have a couple.
Speaks for itself.
Yeah. So 52 days. I mean, this is a wall-run city. That's.
Yeah, exactly.
They work.
This is not a small city.
Yeah.
So.
And again, like Randy shared, they had these buffoons, these three guys. And I have his other name. I like that they finally added in the third culprit. Sanballat, Tobiah, and Geshem, the Arab.
Right.
So those are the ones that started getting crazy.
They did not attack. They did not attack.
No, I mean, I don't think they could. I don't think they could. That's why they tried luring them out. So
right.
But it's interesting. In my little shtick for our video short was, it's kind of a play on how Ezra is a cool name and it's a good band. I think they're a one album wonder. That's why I said in the short.
Yeah.
Is he better than Ezra?
What are we reading next?
We were reading Esther. And it's not the long-eared donkey of Christmas. Of course, that's an Esther anyways.
How many chapters?
I don't know. I think it's pretty short.
Okay.
I think it is. It may just be 5.
Okay.
And I could be completely wrong.
Get out of here. Well, we'll take a look because we were talking. I'm leaving for Florida next week, and we're trying to decide if we want to try to squeeze one in or if we want to do a Zoom or just wait till I get back. So we'll get this video out to you here, Steve. We'll get it out to you as soon as you can, and then there may be a little bit of a pause between, but make sure you hit the bell or the notify button so you'll know when the next video is posted.
Most importantly, read and join the discussion.
Absolutely.
Because again, this is not a teaching. This is about questions and sharing
That's
what we
right.
read and discussing what we read, and hope that you join this with us, because everybody should be reading the Bible.
We've made a great dent so far, I think. It's been over a year and a few months or whatever since we started.
We're not even halfway through the Old Testament, but
Yeah,
hey, it's
but
been
we're making progress.
It's a
so
journey, man.
That's what matters, right?
So like we always say,
All right.
salute,
Salute.
and you all come back now. You hear? And just like